So hey, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's enjoying the videos that we put out. We want to welcome to the set Chewbacca. Oh, Drew, hi, how are you? So Drew is my broker, for those who haven't watched the prior video that we shot together. Say hello to the folks, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Howdy, my name is Drew Laughlin. I'm broker and owner of RealtyOhio. I've been in this business as long as Rich. Actually, we'd have to see who got a license first, but we took classes together, so I've been doing this for about 15 years at the same time. And we're probably in the same boat in the amount of houses we've sold together, in the thousands of range, which I always like to tout with my experience, because a lot of agents will never hit those numbers.
Yeah.
So.
And I want to emphasize the premise of this video is not to hammer on other agents. Mm-hmm. The premise here is to help the viewer to understand that there are different kinds of real estate agents. Yes, we hold the same license, but there's different needs that different people have. Mm-hmm. And my license says that I could sell the biggest building in the state of Ohio and I can sell a piece of land. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I'm the right agent to do that. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm not the right agent to do that. So with that, we'll jump into it. This format will be a little bit different than what people have seen on the channel from just the straight back and forth. Be a little bit more cut up, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. So Drew, you mentioned between the two of us, we've done thousands of deals together. Mm-hmm. Now, I would argue that there's benefits to that, and I would argue that there's detriments to that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the strengths of some folks like us having thousands of deals. Obviously, we've run into a lot of things. I mean, a lot of things. But what are the potential downsides of working with an agent that does that kind of volume?
One that I always like to bring up is going to be organizational skills and the ability to keep on top of what needs to be done. Real estate is an ever-evolving business and process, and I'd say one of the hardest things that I see agents deal with on a regular basis is just management of all of their business going on at the same time. And you may not realize this, but selling real estate, you have to do typically more than one deal at a time in order to stay in business. I know that people think agents make a lot of money, but that's usually for the ones that have a team and that are doing 100 deals a year. So it can be difficult to keep all that together.
Now I'll take the other side of that, the experience level that you are dealing with when you're dealing with someone that has a lot of deals under their belt. I have seen so many different scenarios. I'm not saying I've seen every scenario by far. I just learned something last week. But every time that a deal is done, you get a little bit more experience under your belt. Mm-hmm. You're prepared for a little bit more, and you really can know how to handle certain situations that sometimes the first time it hits you, it's a bit of a shock.
Yep.
So everybody wants to know how to interview an agent, or at least you should want to know. So we're going to talk about some of the questions that I'm going to ask an agent, and we'll go back and forth about the kind of questions that I might ask. So I'll start with the easiest, most obvious one that we just talked about, and that is experience. Mm-hmm. You want to ask what their experience is. Now, don't judge an agent strictly by the number of deals they've done. Let me explain. An agent that's doing a lot of business, if they have a team supporting them and keeping them organized, that's good. An agent doing a lot of deals that is literally flying by the seat of their pants, not good. An agent that maybe is a little bit younger in the business, okay, not necessarily younger in age, but younger in the business, and doesn't have all that experience, may have more time to go out and scout particular things for a client. Those types of things. So obviously I'm going to ask about experience, and I'm going to weigh how that meets my needs. If I need someone to be running all over the city, someone who is doing 500 deals a year might not be the agent for you. Mm-hmm. Where if you're looking for someone that's been around the block and been up and down, and you want to create that true collaborative partnership with the agent you're working with, now you're looking for the person with a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm. Another one that I've seen that I run into, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not a great agent for investors. It's not my strong suit, and more so because I don't always have the time. Doing investment deals takes a lot more effort in looking at the house, looking at all the specifics of the things that might need renovated or changed or updated, maybe dealing with city permits or helping deal with city permits, dealing with contractors, which if you've done investment property, contractors can be all over the place. And I know some of our agents that work here that are really good with investors, it's because they have the time to do that. They have the time to go view the property every couple of days and make sure that stuff's getting done on time. I don't have that kind of time, so I don't tend to work with investors. Now, on the flip side of the coin, I am good at dealing with typically higher-end buyers and sellers because I'm, in my opinion, a little more personable. I am able to, for instance, I had a client just this week. We had some showings on the property, and some agents left some things open or different than how she had left them, and she was very frustrated with that situation. I understand that, and I helped her walk through that process and explain to her what I would do different to make sure we didn't have that situation again. But to an investor is not necessarily going to care about that. But I know that client specifically did. So agents have different strong suits, and that's what you should be looking for, what you need.
Do you happen to know any good investment agents that work for your brokerage?
I might know a few.
I do work with a lot of investors, for those who aren't aware. That's why I'm so value conscious in the things that I go after. One question that I'm going to ask an agent is going to be, what is your workload right now? Literally, every agent that's out there has ups and downs in the business. Okay? If you're looking to move next month, and you're in a market like the market we have right now, which is very, very tight inventory. If you're looking to move this month, you're going to want an agent that has the time to dedicate specifically to you. Now, that doesn't mean they can't have other deals in the pipeline and those types of things. But if they tell you things like, this market's crazy, I'm running all over the place, and you're looking to move this month, is that the right agent that's going to fit you? Now, conversely, that agent that's busy is going to have more exposure to the market. They're going to be out in the market more. So if you're looking for a little bit wider scope, that agent that's extremely busy, if you've got a little bit of time to spend, on your search, that agent that's out there in the market more may exactly be the right agent. There's nothing wrong with being extremely busy, but if you're looking to move right now, you need someone that can dedicate that time, or has a member on their team that they can dedicate to your move right now.
And kind of to dovetail off that is, I think a lot of agents, I'll take that back, not a lot of agents, I and probably you're the same way in that our goal is to find you the best possible property that works for you. And I'm a big believer in having as many conversations about real estate as physically possible. An example would be, I've got a client right now that's moving. They bought a house, I think in 2017, that was not on the market. He told me what they were looking for. I knew the area they wanted to be. So I targeted with cold calling, with direct mail in order to find a property that we couldn't find. It wasn't on the market. He bought the house. We got a great deal on the property, and now they're selling it and making a great return on their investment. So I'm always a big fan of agents that put a net out there and look for property on a constant basis. If they're just relying on the MLS to find something, especially in this market, they're probably not going to find it. So that's why having other avenues to bring in potential sellers or potential buyers to fit what you're looking for, that's a huge plus.
So let me tie that up in a bow for people here. An agent who you interview and you say, so what are the methods you're going to go out and help me to secure a new property? I mean, when you're selling a property, I'm not going to lie, one of the most effective ways to sell a property is to list it in the MLS. Now, we're going to do other marketing with it, okay? But a lot of properties are sold by cooperation through the MLS. But if you ask an agent, when we go to buy a property, what are the sources that you're going to utilize to help us find that property? If the answer is, I'm going to send you a search from the MLS, and you're in a market like this, tight market, you might want to look for another agent because they have not done the direct solicitation. They have not gone out and networked with other people to find those deals. There are even specialized people out in the market called wholesalers. They're out there buying homes up.
Yep.
And then they will let people like Drew and I know that those are available. They're not on the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another common misconception is every agent is right for every person.
Mm-hmm.
So I've mentioned so many times on this channel that I'm very value conscious. I run numbers. I'm not the best person to be necessarily hand-holding or maybe to judge what is a pretty kitchen. I don't see that as my role. Now that's the way I approach real estate. Now, Drew, on the other hand, he's, number one, much younger, much more handsome than I am, but he's also much more of an interpersonal interaction
Mm-hmm.
person. There's nothing wrong with either approach. So let me give you some of the things that you could ask. You could say, could you tell me how you handle interactions? If the interactions are much more driven to numbers and those kind of things, then I'm your agent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're looking for someone that's masochistic enough to be a broker, no, joking. But if they're looking for someone that maybe deals in a particular market more, like for example, we have a community here in Columbus called Clintonville.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a client looking in Clintonville, this is the number one expert in Columbus on the Clintonville market. Conversely, if he's looking at a property and the people are very value conscious, maybe doing upgrades, those kind of things, you maybe call me to get the numbers,
Yep.
but you can maintain the relationship.
Yep. I had a guy a couple months ago, his first question out of his mouth, he's looking to bill, and what can you do for me? How can you help me with the builder? Like, why do I need an agent with the builder? It's like, you need to call Rich. Rich is the guy that knows all those upgrades, and he's going to help you with those things. I'm not as good with those details as he is.
Right.
But on the flip side of that coin, I always like to tell my clients that you should expect to work with me like you're working with family. If you need someone to help mow the yard, I'm going to be there. You need somebody to help get stuff out of your house, I've got people for that. If you need somebody to do painting, I can do that too. My goal and the way I treat my business is I want the process to be as stress-free as physically possible. Whatever I can do to make that happen is going to happen. Whereas, again, I'm not the numbers guy, so if you're telling me you want this upgrade, that upgrade, how's it going to cost and affect my bottom line, that's your man, not me.
And I'm not necessarily the most personable person, but I do have a secret weapon. The secret weapon is behind this camera.
Yep.
And that is my assistant Sarah is much, much friendlier. She makes me look good, for sure.
Not only with the camera, but...
Very true, very true. I have to be smart because with a face like this, I can only get by being a little bit smarter. So the way that real estate agents approach the business is also important to a client. So I'm very value conscious, and I wake up in the morning looking to make a difference in people's financial lives and do that through real estate. Now, I do a lot of investment real estate. I work with a lot of value conscious homeowners that are looking to occupy the property, and I look for those financial benefits. I'm not necessarily the person that's looking for the next best, greatest thing that's out there in the market, or necessarily the most creative thing, although, trust me, investment real estate is very creative. I live to work for the first-time home buyer, that I can really get off on that first good foot.
Mm-hmm.
That's also very difficult because first-time home buyers take a lot more time, and of course I have to fit my time, appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that those are my values. I truly believe that I can impact people's futures by giving them great real estate education, great real estate advice. Now I'm a terrible salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a good teacher. I teach people about what it takes to set themselves up that way. Now that's my approach. Now let's talk about Drew's approach.
I like to make sure my clients are making, this probably goes without saying, but making the best decision for them. Is going to buy that renovation property that needs new everything, kitchen, bathrooms, roof, you name it. Is that really a good idea to buy? Are you at a point in your life where you're able to handle the stress and the amount of time that takes to do that? I had a conversation with a client last night that a great new house popped up. Problem is they're in the middle of renovating a lot of different things on their house. I said, well, we can sell it. You're not going to get top dollar because stuff still has to be done. And after through more conversation with them, she kind of realized maybe we should wait another month or two to get through some of those things. But my biggest goal is to make sure that when you're buying a property, it's going to fit your need now and maybe your need 5 years from now. Can you make adjustments to that property that are really going to make you love the house, or are these things that make you hate the house? One thing I run into a lot and probably do too is compromises. We're going to compromise on something in this house. It may not be a big deal, this compromise, but maybe it is a big deal down the road and you may not be thinking of that. And I run into that a lot.
And super important when we're talking about those compromises. Make sure you're not making compromises that are going to impact the bottom line 7-10 years from now when you're going to sell the property.
Yep.
I tell everybody I have a cracked crystal ball. My cracked crystal ball allows me to see the future by looking at where things are going. So I was talking about mother-in-law suites 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, the Black Plague hits us with the pandemic, and now mother-in-law suites, they were popular before, now they've shot up in popularity with what people want. Those aren't in the market. Those types of properties weren't built because that was not something people wanted.
Yep.
A home built in the 1950s doesn't have a home office.
Yep.
People didn't have home offices. You went to the office.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you had to do. People didn't own micro businesses that they ran from their homes.
Mm-hmm.
If you study culture, you'll see where home building and home markets will go.
Mm-hmm.
And I spend a lot of time analyzing those things. I'm a statistical type guy at heart. And I study those things, so while that crystal ball is cracked, no one can see the future.
Yep.
If you pay attention, and if you're interviewing an agent, ask them what they do to keep up on trends. If they tell you, I watch the evening news, okay, that there's nothing wrong with watching the evening news. I watch the evening news and then sit down for about 3 hours at night studying about what's happening and trying to inform my customers of what's happening.
It's funny, that's why I still like working with buyers. And even though being a broker owner and a point in my business where I could be more selective, I still enjoy working with buyers because that's where you learn the market, where they tell you what they're looking for. When they tell you that I need X, Y, Z, that now explains to me and gives me a leg up because now I know with my sellers what the buying public's looking for. I know that maybe this paint color that you chose, for instance, one we used to see when we first started was the bright oranges and the bright greens and the bright purples. And that was great then.
I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, right. Don't see those much anymore, whether or not you like them. But that is a design trend that has changed. And so those are things you learn when you're an agent that is working in the business. You learn from your buying public exactly what's popular and what's not popular.
And on that topic, things that are timeless when you're going out to build or you're going to renovate.
Mm-hmm.
Timeless renovations versus trendy.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not talking about in particular like paint color, but things like spindles.
Yeah.
Spindles were a big trend
Yep.
for a long time, and people spent a lot of money. And they went out of style just as fast as they came in.
Mm-hmm.
Today's trend is white cabinets and farmhouse look. Now, I personally think that that's going to be a timeless trend. Conversely, I joke all the time. There was a house that was built, I've toured it. It was a $2 million house that was built like the Starship Enterprise. So $2 million, Starship Enterprise, there's 6 people in this area that would buy that house.
Yep.
So the person who built it is either going to be looking at a major renovation down the road, or they're going to have to sell to one of the 6 people
Yep.
that can do that house.
Yep. It's funny, I've had that same conversation with my wife about what we're going to be doing to our house. Shoot for timeless, and then you can make things look trendy by still using the timeless, a good description would be, but yes, you can make things look great, new, updated, without putting yourself in a spot where you're going to be renovating an entire kitchen just because it looks old.
Okay, so one of the things that Drew mentioned in the last segment was he still works with buyers. Now, some people might not be familiar. There are agents that specialize in listings. There are agents that specialize in buyers. And then there are agents that work with both buyers and sellers. And that could be across the investment market or across the owner-occupied market. It doesn't matter. Now, I have extremely strong views about this, and we'll let Drew express his as well. Someone who is strictly a listing agent doesn't get exposed to the trends that are in the market. The only thing they're doing is doing the hard work up front of listing a home, and that is a lot of hard work, but then they're not communicating with the people who are in the market buying. So someone who, this market especially, it's a crazy time. If you're not out there working with buyers, you can't adequately advise your listing clients, in my opinion. Now that might mean something to some of the folks that are out there, but this is one I hold a very, very strong opinion about. Do I work with a ton of buyers anymore? I will say that my time is spent working with a more selective set of buyers. I really enjoy working with buyers, but it's very time consuming. Listings, of course, the old saying is list to exist in the real estate business. But it's definitely my opinion that if someone is going to be listing homes, they also need to be working with buyers, because if they don't, they can't advise their listing folks right. Now, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.
A prime example that we were talking about earlier is maybe someone comes in and tells you should renovate the entire inside of your house because that will net you the most amount of money, which is true. But a lot of times, if you just have white woodwork and you keep a lot of the other things, keep it clean, you don't need to do a lot of those renovations. It's
because the buyers aren't looking for it.
Yeah, and it's added stress. You know, sure, you're going to net more money, but is it worth the added stress of having to deal with contractors that told you it would take 3 weeks and it takes 6 months? Those are very big concerns that people don't always consider. And at least in this market, in a seller's market, you don't have to do a thing. It's a thinking thing.
So along the same lines, Drew, do you believe there's such a thing as a true neighborhood expert?
I think it depends, yes, but I also think it depends on the neighborhood. Like Clintonville would be a prime example. Clintonville are houses that were built in the 1920s, early 1900s. So you run in, and there actually are houses that were built long before that. Clintonville even has a mix of houses that were actually vacation homes for people that live closer to downtown. Because Clintonville used to be grasslands and woods, right? So there are houses in there that were built in the 1800s. Well, a nice thing about working with an agent who knows Clintonville is they're going to have an understanding of how some of those houses were built and the differences you're going to run into from a house built in that era versus one built maybe in the 1980s. Big differences. The other nice thing about, for instance, the area of Clintonville and work with a neighborhood expert is they're going to know where there might be a certain type of house that you're looking for. An example would be I live in an area of ranches in Clintonville. There's only a very small spot in Clintonville with ranches in them, whereas a lot of the rest of them are bungalows or craftsmen, those types of properties. So yeah, there are neighborhood experts that know a lot about the neighborhood that also might know people that are thinking of selling or might know the vacant property around them.
So I have specific neighborhoods that I certainly know well, certainly up close to where I live. I know them very, very well. I also know neighborhoods that my investor clients purchase in. I have to keep up with those neighborhoods. I either keep up with them or I lose those clients. So I have to keep up with them, which makes my neighborhood specialty rather wide because my investors purchase in multiple different neighborhoods. Now, what I will add to that, though, is that a good agent, someone who is good with numbers, can walk into a new market or a new neighborhood and get up to speed pretty fast. Now let's share an experience that Drew and I had. When we were working during the recession and we were doing foreclosure homes, the banks would expect us to put together rather detailed reports on the neighborhood, on the house, what the values were, those kind of things. Well, it's really funny. We ended up expanding our territory, and the first place we got sent to was 4 hours from Columbus. We obviously were not neighborhood experts.
Nope.
4 hours away. However, we learned very, very quickly techniques to go into a new neighborhood in a town that we knew nothing about. Study the statistics first. Study what's on the market and what is sold in the market next. And literally, we would become experts in a market in 3 days of hard studying, is what I used to tell people. Now, Drew used to do all the broker price opinions, so he may disagree with me a little bit. But I could become an expert in a neighborhood if I studied it really, really hard for 3 days. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to know who Joe and Sally is up the street, but it does mean that I'm going to know a lot about that neighborhood's financial dynamics very, very quickly.
I think a good example, there are areas of Columbus that if the foreclosure came up in that neighborhood, it almost didn't matter what the condition was, aside from maybe a tear down or bulldoze. But if you bought that house and you bought in that neighborhood and you bought in 2010, 2012, you probably have tripled or quadrupled the money that you put into that house in a couple of years.
Right.
So even though we may not be the neighborhood expert, it's very easy to tell that, we see this house on the market for a whole 3 minutes and it's got, multiple offers on it already. That's probably a very desirable spot to be.
Right.
So if you're in an area where people are desirable, we see houses moving quickly, we don't see anything sitting on the market, no matter what it is, that's probably a really good indicator. And those are things that an educated agent would figure out very, very quickly by looking at just historical data of what's going on in that neighborhood.
Even if they're not like expert.
Yep.
They don't know Joe and Sally, but they know the numbers. So now let's jump into the agent that advertises all the time. Another topic that I have a lot of strong feelings about. Now, every agent has to go out and get their name to be known. But agents that are constantly, out there hammering, tells me that they don't have enough business. Now, I'm not hammering people for going out and marketing and advertising and those types of things, but there's a smart way, in my opinion, to do it. I do it through education. That's what I choose. But if someone is out there touting, hey, I'm a real estate agent, hey, I'm a real estate agent, hey, I'm a real estate agent, do you agree that they might need to learn how to be a real estate agent?
I'd actually disagree with you on this one.
See there?
I think that real estate agents is 95% marketing, 5% sales. And what I mean by that is I'm not here to sell you a house, right? I'm not here to tell you, got to buy this one right now. It's sell me the pen, right? I'm not selling you a pen. But what I am doing is doing my best to market my ability to market your property or to market and find potential clients. So an example where that would be a very good thing for you is, let's say you tell me that you're looking in an area that I happen to market quite a bit. I might have already talked to people in that area that have considered or thought about or maybe in the near future consider selling. That's a great way to put deals together. And another prime example of that would be is all of the neighborhood Facebook groups. I can't tell you how many of my clients tell me, well, I saw that listing a week ago. I saw the agent or I saw the seller put that house in there and tell us that they were coming up for sale. It's the same idea. And so I really do believe that marketing is such a big piece of what agents need to do in order to not only be effective for you and for finding you the house that you want, but also just to keep new and interested people coming in. And again, if you can't really talk or have a conversation in this business, you're going to have a hard time. You need to be able to talk to a brick wall.
Well, and when I say that the constant marketing, of course, you have to let people know that you exist. My way of letting people know I exist is by doing things like this, creating educational information. I do seminars, and of course that's advertising, but it's more about educating people along the way. Not everybody takes my approach. Other people are like, hey, I'm the greatest agent that ever existed on the face of the earth. That's not where my comfort level is. My comfort level is going out and creating more relationships and referrals, where other agents are just continually beating the fence. Now, I'm not saying anything's wrong with either approach, but my approach is this. Other people take another approach. And, certainly you want to do what's comfortable for you. And each agent is different in how they approach it.
What I found funny about living in my area of Clintonville and the place that I live, and probably the majority of Clintonville, is people move there because they want something different than what you would find in the suburbs. They want something that has, they would call character and large trees to it. And I kind of laughed, one of my neighbors bought a house that had come on the market. We've been in our house a couple of years, but they wanted to specifically live in this area because they wanted the retro. They wanted the yellow countertops. They wanted the green tile. Which
if I get a deal for them,
right? It's come back into style again. And since they've moved in, they haven't changed a thing. They still have the metal strip around the countertop because they love that look. Now, I never would have thought that. I've seen other houses in our neighborhood completely renovated, brand new everything. They got all the top of the line countertops and appliances. But that's not everybody, and people look specifically for a type of house. In fact, they make those green and yellow fridges again out of everything else. But some people want that, so you gotta have conversations to know it.
It'll take them 9 months to get them delivered, but they make them. Yeah.
Just had a tenant ask me for a new stove, and I told them I would work on that, but I warned them it might be Christmas before it shows up. So yeah. But yeah, conversations with people.
Sure. So I'm a big fan of building networks of vendors and suppliers and helpers and all the people. I mean, selling real estate is more than just a real estate agent.
Yep.
There's lenders involved. There's title people involved. You might need someone to clean your house. You might need a new roof put on your house. There's all kinds of things that come up. If you really want to learn quickly how experienced and how knowledgeable an agent is when you're interviewing them, ask them about their contacts and ask them about something obscure. I'm looking for someone to repair a concrete sidewalk with a chip in it. Or I'm looking to get a refrigerator repaired, not replaced. Or I'm looking to get texture on a textured ceiling. A very experienced agent may have that kind of network, right, Drew?
And I got to really, really like you to give you my flooring guy. Just getting him back in my house anytime in the next 6 months, good luck. No, in all seriousness, we talk about this all the time, and I saw an agent make the miscomment on Facebook the other day was, when you hire me, you hire us to manage the property to some extent, to manage the process, right? So that means if the grass needs mowed because you moved, I've got 3 or 4 guys I'm going to call to get out there and mow the lawn. I had this actually scenario happen this week where the grass got too high, city got mad about it, so I had to find someone to go mow the grass. So those are scenarios where having someone that works in the business on a regular basis, I run in lawnmower guys all the time, flooring guys, painters, take your pick, and I got a Rolodex, a bunch of them, because just because Harry worked great for me today doesn't mean Harry has any openings for the next 6 months tomorrow.
Exactly.
So I've got different people to go to.
And seriously, the quickest way to narrow down your agent choices is to ask them about their network of people. People who are in the business just as a hobby is a personal pet peeve of mine. I believe that people should be able to get high levels of service. Whether someone working part-time is different than working it as a hobby. I know some very, very, very good part-time agents. who really study it, keep on top of it, but still maintain maybe a full-time job because they need to have a specialized insurance or something. But someone who works it as a hobby doesn't keep up with who is going to be a good grass cutting vendor, who is going to handle or have capability of doing roof in the next 2 weeks. Those kinds of questions will narrow down an agent pool in a big hurry, because that is, in my opinion, one of the true differences.
And in a different market, where it is not so crazy, having someone that can come make repairs on a property in a timely fashion is a big deal.
And not charge you through the nose to do it.
Well, and do it right. That's the other problem. So, yep.
Yeah, we see these things all the time. Now, we've just covered a few of the questions that rise to the top of our heads as we are interviewing agents that we would like to work with. So Drew hires agents. I'm always looking for agents that may be a good fit for my team. These are the questions we would ask them. And these are the questions we would ask them if we were looking to hire them. So I hope you found this video exciting, entertaining. I'll let you take the outro on this one, Drew.
I'll just tell you, give us a call. We're here to help. We want to help. And we want to make the process as easy for you as physically possible, so that you come back and you recommend your friends and family. So.
And should they smash the like button or should they just tap it?
Always smash it. Always hit it hard.
Smash the like button and subscribe.
Yep.
Positively. And please share this video with your friends. You'd be amazed how many people just don't learn about these things. And by sharing it with your friends, you're doing them a favor.
Thanks for checking us out.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the time. Hope you're enjoying. We'll see you in the next video.